Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm former NASA astronaut and technical consultant for All Mankind, Garrett Reisman. Before we speak to our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has set up a COVID relief fund in order to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times. Since March, thanks to your donations, the foundation has given over $6.1 million in emergency aid to more than 6,600 performers and their families. If you're a SAG-AFTRA member and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest, Joel Kinnaman from the Apple TV Plus production For All Mankind. Yes, in an inspired piece of casting, Joel plays astronaut Ed Baldwin, since we all know that astronauts in real life are smart, brave, fit, tall, and exceedingly handsome. So welcome to the conversation, Joel. How are you?
Good, man. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, man. So let's see. Let's catch up with Ed Baldwin as season 2 of For All Mankind opens up in 1983. What's going on in his world?
Yeah, so our show is, has come to our second season, and we've gone further along this alternate history timeline that starts in the beginning of the first episode of the first season. And the space race has not whittled down as it did in real history, but it has increased and it has become the main arena for the Cold War that has now reached a boiling hot point. And we see a lot new technology, because innovation has been developed at a rapid increasing pace. And we follow our characters in the new 80s, and that's the main arena for the show for the second season. And for me personally, Ed Baldwin, in the end of the second season, we saw the Baldwin family go through a horrible tragedy. They lost their son, and we pick up 10 years later. We've all gotten a little grayer. Baldwin has gained some weight, and not as much as his best friend Gordo. I'm like catching up on the second season myself now. For some reason I didn't get around to watch the show during the whole press tour, and now I'm seeing it now, and it's so fun to see Michael. Like, wow, he ate a lot of hamburgers to get ready for the second season.
I was shocked.
That was quite a transformation.
I thought for sure that was some kind of like prosthetic, like some kind of prop or something, but that was all him.
So for people who don't know that, so my best friend in the series and a dear friend of me in real life, Michael Dorman, he plays Gordo Stevens in the show. And so, between the seasons, there's 10 years that passes. And so, of course, we're portraying, this change in time. And Gordo Stevens has really, he's fallen from grace. And Michael just went head first into that challenge, and we were laughing about it on set, because I was like, it was unbelievable to see, because he's a fit guy that takes care of himself, and he became El Gordo for real.
El Gordo. Yeah, after we shot that stuff though, he took it off, and I was asking him for tips on like diet and exercise, because I'm like, how did you do it? And he was kind of coy about it, so I still don't.
I helped him a little bit. I was like, listen, you got to be regimented like this. But he was very, very dedicated to getting it off. It was just as dedicated to shedding that weight as he was putting it on.
That's good.
It was pretty great.
So, hey, so you mentioned like all those dramatic moments, in season 1, Ed Baldwin loses his son, and you have a lot of really intense dramatic moments in season 1 and season 2. But you also have like a lot of action and stunt work, when you're on the moon and out there holding on to a spaceship, throwing a tank of propellant and stuff. So, and then you also got like some comedy scenes too, which is actually one of my personal favorites. I kind of really dig that stuff. So of all those different, so it really must tax you as an actor to have to cover all those different types of scenes. Which kind of aspects of the role do you think are like the most demanding? Which ones come the most easy to you, and which ones are the most fun of all those things?
Well, I think the big challenge of the role was, and it was also one of the main reasons why I wanted to take this role on. It was to portray the tragedy of losing a child, and also to see this, in some way, this like a classical American hero, someone, growing up in the 40s and 50s. It's this classic. It's almost an American archetype. The strong, silent type that keeps his emotions under the vest, and just really wants to portray strength to the outside world. It's someone that doesn't really show their insecurities, and it's similar. Like I know I recognize my father in some ways in Ed Baldwin, and I thought it was really interesting to play that kind of a person that goes through the ultimate tragedy, something that definitely will break anyone. So that was like the big challenge of this character, and we go through it in the end of the first season, and then of course we jump 10 years into the second season, and so it's really interesting to see what that has done to a person, and of course the writers had found a really interesting way to tell that story 10 years later. I think in my mind, I'm so eager to sort of play the trauma, because that's the challenge. I hadn't thought about, also something that I find so important in storytelling is always finding the contrast. And when you're telling the story, you find the opposite way of telling the story. And so when we come into the second season, then Ed Baldwin is actually at his lightest that we've ever seen him. He seems more at peace, almost happier than he's been before. And that was a little shocking to me when I read the first scripts, because I was so eager to play the trauma and rise to the challenge. That's the. But they found a really interesting and beautiful way to tell that story where, of course, that kind of pain and those wounds is never going away. It's never going to heal. But it's after 10 years, it's not on the surface. And then when it comes out, triggered by something that we didn't expect. And that's, I think, how life is. It doesn't follow this sort of logical ABCD pattern. It's more illogical, and yes. So I think the big challenge. I also felt this. A big part of my research, or a part of my research, was studying and reading about people that had lost children and what it did to them, and watching a lot of these painful interviews with parents that have lost a child. And so I think for both me and Chantel, who plays my wife in the show, Karen Baldwin, you feel a sense of responsibility towards these people that have gone through this, and you feel a responsibility of just doing your utmost to give that experience just everything that you have to honor it in some way, and to honor that experience by just digging as deep as we can. So yeah, so I think that was the most difficult thing of getting there.
When you have like this really technical scenes where it is a bunch of like techno babble, does that ever like oh come on, give me a break, or is it?
Yeah, often that's the stuff that you got to rehearse the most, right? I mean, that's the stuff that needs to just, flow out of your face, and with zero effort. And so, that's the stuff that, and you can't remember, there's no logic to it. So you just have to learn it ABCD wise.
If you only
Yeah,
knew
that's
how
the
much
stuff that
logic
takes the
there is
longest.
to that, man. There's tons of logic.
Yeah, but makes
Yeah, I know.
zero sense to me.
Uh, does it get easier over time as you like season two? Did it get easier to deal with some of the technical stuff? You're getting more knowledgeable about all the space stuff, or
No,
not really?
no,
No.
my knowledge is increasing at 0%.
Zero. Oh man.
No, a little bit, of course, but no, I think the gobbledygook will always be gobbledygook. You just learn that. It's just yeah.
So you said that you saw, in that aspect of your character Ed, that you saw a bit of your dad in
Yeah.
Ed, and in some of the things he has to contend with. But what parts of the character do you see yourself in? Like what parts of Ed are most like you, and what parts of Ed are the least like you?
Um, it's hard to tell. I rarely I get that question, sometimes, do you recognize yourself in this character or in that character? And it's funny because it's like you have this idea of a character, and then you sort of it's like you go on this mission to sort of paint that picture of that idea in a way. But then you fill it with yourself, right? So you fill it with your emotions, and sometimes little personality traits, little quirks and charms that you come up with that become sort of a mixture of you and this. So then there's this sort of chemistry, this mixture going on of the idea of the character, and that could be a way of talking, a manner, a way of the posture. I'm pretty. So this is like actor technical, but I'm sort of I have I think I use a lot of Stanislavski's later writing. So I like the physical method, the physical aspect of the character. So in some ways I work outside in. I like to sort of find the body of the character. I like to find the tensions that the character has. I like to find the way that the character walks. I like to start with these sort of physical aspects before I start thinking more of the inner life of the character. And I find that often informs so much. When you find a person's tension, then that usually informs like how you look at people, the confidence you have, the way that you relate to people around you. So for me, that's sort of how I start. And then you start filling it in with sometimes you give a character a little bit of your sense of humor, but it becomes through this prism of this other personality that has all these other traits. So it becomes something different. So it's really hard to say what reminds what that character has to do with me, because they all do, in some way. It's hard to answer. I don't really know how to answer that.
But you do
Because-
get. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
For me, as a complete noob in Hollywood, it strikes me as a little bit strange. And to you, probably this is just a given, or just you maybe don't even think about it. But you invest so much time in this character, but you can't control what the character does, right? Like none of us could control the environment that's around us and what the happenstance that we live in. But we all can control the decisions we make, the actions we take. But you are following, what the people that control that, or the writers, the executive producers that make that decision. Does that ever get strange for you? Like when you like I saw like Chantel wrote, I read somewhere that she wrote like a 250-page journal about like what happened to her character between season 1 and season 2. When you get like that invested in
Of
it,
course she did.
yours was about 300, right?
Yeah,
but, but
yeah.
does that ever like get frustrating for you, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so that, that's the big difference of doing something in a series format or a feature film, where and I started out doing mostly feature films or theater plays, and there exactly you know the story, right? So you also build your character based on these events that we're about to portray. And you can build your arc, and you can you choose where to reveal what, and so on. It can be a very exciting and a live process to do a serialized version where you don't know everything, and also things take much longer time to play out. You have to have much more patience, and it can also be super frustrating. But my my advice, which is useless to most people, is like only do projects with really good writers.
Yeah, right.
Most people are just trying to get a decent job, but it's a huge yeah, it's frustrating to have that loss of control, for sure. It's and I sometimes end up in these like I sometimes get really irritated because I also, especially when I have the each character usually has like one kind of trauma or one sort of big challenge. When I did The Killing, it was his struggle with addiction. With Ed Baldwin, it's the loss of his child. These are sort of the spine of the character that that I the reason why I wanted to do it. And in TV, you take your time in revealing things, and you take your time in showing things, and sometimes things don't reveal themselves, even over the whole first season. And that really took me a while to figure out and to be patient with. But hopefully you'll work with people that are sophisticated and that are smart and have and understand the character in the same way that you do. But also the beautiful thing with a good process in a serialized version is that it's a process that is alive, and it's something that changes over the course of making it. So it's a series becomes this living, breathing entity that has its own life, and it changes depending on what you feed it, and that is really exciting. And that's why I love when writers, and in America this is much more common, but in Sweden and Europe, very often you have all the scripts written beforehand. And I like that too, because then you have the same creative experience as when you do a feature. You can plan it out, but you lose this alive process where things change dependent on the choices of the actors, or what happens between some characters on set. Some maybe two performers just really connect and start improvising a little bit, and something new that wasn't on the page gets created, and then the writers can pick up on that, and then it completely reshapes the whole series, or at least these characters' lives. And that's really exciting. That's a really fun process, and especially when you do things over the course of several years, when you also grow and you change as a person, and it becomes incorporated into the story of the character, and you can feel that. My feeling when I've done series for several seasons is that you seep into it more. Like your personality permeates the character even more. But then at the same time, it becomes more of the character as well. It's a weird experience, but it can be really exciting, and I find often the best performances, deepest, seem to be a couple of years down the line in
Yeah.
the Walter Whites, and it's so deep, and the transformation and the journey of the character from the beginning to the end is so far. They've just traveled such a vast distance. I don't know.
Yeah,
It was a
I mean,
long
literally in this
rambling
case,
rant.
and what's great that that we're already working on season 3, so we're going to be able to continue that for a whole nother season, and I'm really excited to see like where Ed's up and where the whole show goes, and I think that's going to be really cool. But back in season 1 and season 2, one of the things that we deal with on the show is the Vietnam War and kind of the aftermath of that conflict.
Yeah.
I know in your personal life, your father was really touched by
I
that.
fought. Oh yeah, my dad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What's that? You fought in it? Yeah, right.
No, that was my character, right? Yeah.
No, your character.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get. I know you get. You mentioned how it gets confused and you get melded, but
yes.
no, you didn't fight in the war.
No.
But your dad was involved. Do you want to? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my dad didn't fight, but yeah. So I mean, that era is very intertwined in sort of my family's mythology, because my dad was sent to Vietnam, and actually he was sent to he got drafted, and then was stationed in Bangkok, and he started to form these other opinions about the war, and then he had this one transformative event where he had a German friend that was marrying a Laotian girl, and my dad joined him at their wedding in Laos on a leave. So he went on a leave for a weekend up to Laos, and went to this wedding. And he was a 20-year-old kid from Indiana, had never been outside the country before, and he participated in this Laotian wedding, and he had this magical cultural experience. And the woman's family happened to be Laotian Vietnamese, so he had this incredible cultural loving experience, this celebration of love with this Vietnamese family, and then returned home to the base a day after and just felt that he was changed, and the idea that these were the people that he was going to go kill just did not compute for him, and then serendipitously his orders changed a couple of days later, and he was supposed to be sent into Vietnam into battle, and he just made a decision there and then that he was not going to participate in the war. So he snuck out of the military barracks and hitchhiked his way into central Bangkok, burned his passport, and then hitchhiked his way up into North Thailand and into Laos. And then he lived on the run in Laos for 5 years. Had a crazy adventure and story there. And he met my sister's mom, who was an American woman working for the Red Cross. She got pregnant, and then they found out that Sweden was actually the only Western country that accepted deserters. There was several countries that accepted draft dodgers, but Sweden was the only Western country that accepted actual deserters. And then some journalist friends pulled together some money, and he got to borrow a passport from a journalist friend. And then they were able to escape to Sweden, and then that's how. And he, a couple of years later, Dee and him, they got separated, and later he met my mom. But my dad is still married to my mom and lives in Sweden. So that was sort of our family originated via his desertion in Laos. So that so I grew up with a very that era, that time frame was very present in my growing up. Hearing my dad tell stories about it. Of course, he's very opinionated about the war and about sort of.
At what age did he share that with you? When did you learn all this?
Oh, we started indoctrinating me at a very early age.
In utero? In you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. My dad had a very complicated relationship to America in general, and sort of.
But they sent
It's
you back here,
interesting.
right? They sent you back here for high school, right? So,
Yeah, so I went. I was always drawn to the States. You know, I grew up in Sweden, but I was always very drawn to the U.S. and sort of my. And it's fun. It's funny because now I think when I decided to move here, and my life is now, you know, based here, and I feel very much American. You know, even though I'm Swedish as well. It's sort of. I think it's rekindled my dad's love for America as well, and his. You know, I think. You know, it really. I think my experience here and the way that I talk about America and you know, being the country of contrast and, you know, a place where all the ideas can be and where there's no place on earth where there is a vaster contrast of ideas and opinions and you know, it all fits in here and I think that's something that my dad has, you know, since I moved here,
it's
kind
come to
of,
appreciate.
yeah, it's come to appreciate again and understand, and so I think understood himself that he actually came from that, you know.
You know, I just found out about all that back history of yours recently, but it strikes me as, without giving out any spoilers, and you know, in season two, there's this whole conflict between the militarization of space and the peaceful civilian use of space. And your character gets caught up in the middle of that and has some real moral quandaries that he has to deal with about the use of force and war. So now that I know this about you, I'm assuming that your dad's past was really something you could draw from when you shot those scenes. Was that something that helped you, or is it? Did you feel like it was completely different because you're out there flying around in space?
Yeah, no, I don't think I thought about that really, you know, because I think also Baldwin is you know, the very opposite of my dad. He is sort of the other side of the coin, right? He's not the conscientious objector. He is at
He's
all.
kind of gung ho, yeah.
Yeah, he is, and you know, very much you know, sees the communism and the Soviets as a threat to the world, and is very much you know, entrenched in his views, and
Do you think if things went differently for your dad, let's say he did go, he had never had that experience with that family, and he ended up going and fighting in the war. Because a lot of what shapes Ed's views on all this, and he brings it up in season one in several scenes, is his experience in Korea and how that really hardened him against the Soviets.
yeah.
And do you think your dad could have ended up like Ed if he would have gone and had that combat experience?
I think a lot of veterans that came home from Vietnam came home feeling, why did we do this? Why did I, you know, why was I put in a position to do this? And what did this people, you know, what did they do to deserve what was unleashed on them? And that a lot of the pretense for going into that war of sort of supporting the South Vietnamese was not correct, and it was much more of a macro political game, and they were a piece of the puzzle that that you know, just got played.
As you've worked on the show and as you've gotten into this character, has your curiosity about space travel increased? I know you're working on getting a pilot's license. Would you go if somebody said, hey, you know, if Elon Musk called you up and said, hey, we got an extra seat here on this Dragon, do you want to go? Would you be up for it? Yeah, right there.
Come on, you know Elon. Come on, you know him. You got to make that call for me, Garrett. I'm going to do what I can in the course of my life to get a spot. Like, I really want to see the, you know, I think, you know, from talking to you and listening to interviews of every astronaut that you know I've been listening to in all my research, and getting the experience of seeing Earth from space and getting the perspective of being outside of the planet and watching this blue orb in this sea of darkness seems to be an absolutely transformative experience. That just, even though we see it on, you know, you can put it on VR and, you know, but just having that experience seems to be a transformative experience, and just shifting your perspective in a way where you realize that, like, all life that's ever been lived is right there. And I think the more people that get to have that experience, the less our tribal strife makes sense. And I think that I want to have that experience. I want to have it. I want to, and I hope as many people as possible get to have it. I think it's really important. I think.
I know what you're saying there, and it's true. A lot of people have that.
How many times did you go up? How many times did you go up?
Two times. 2 times.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I've been to
and
space
the
twice.
first time, how long were you? Did you go to the space ISS first time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And how long did you stay?
That was my long duration when I was up there, 95 days.
Oh, that's right. You were there 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, to me, like a lot of.
So how tall were you before you went?
How tall was I?
Yeah, because I heard that you know, it's.
I actually grew up there, and then it's a terrible.
You grew up there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I grew an inch, and then I came back, and it went away immediately. It's a horrible hoax. It's cruel. It's a cruel tease, really, is what all it is. I thought I'd come back and be able to play in the NBA, but no.
Yeah.
But
so for a brief time, you actually grow. Because the spine kind of decompresses a little bit. Is that what happens?
Yeah. From not being compressed by gravity all the time. Yeah. So you stretch out. Yeah. But anyway, I agree. I know what you're saying. A lot of people talk about that overview effect and say that you know, they suddenly see us all as one species on one planet. We all have the same home and all that.
You're gonna say it's all bullshit? Is that what's happening here?
Not this. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. But the thing is, you shouldn't have to go to space to know that. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that should be self-evident. So I kind of like people that say.
Well, apparently it's not. It's evidently not.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. So I put out on social media. I knew we were doing this today, and so on social media, I asked people to submit questions that they would want to ask you. So I got one that I thought was particularly good. Okay. This is from an S. Walger on Instagram. She said she wants to know whether you'll treasure working with Sonia Walger for the rest of your life or just the rest of your working career. That's all
I think it's both. You know, I think it's both. It's definitely for the rest of my working career, but I mean, it was such a potent experience, a transformative experience. So definitely the rest of my life as well. She is a lovely human being and a lovely actor. Yes. We had a lot of fun. She did yell at you a lot.
She did yell at me. She did yell, but she actually took me under her wing and gave me some acting lessons, which was really cool. Like she said, like, so in my, that's why I was asking you these questions about.
It didn't seem to do that much good.
Well, hey man, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for doing this. And
you did really good. I mean, you're a great interviewer, Garrett. Look, you got so many hats.
This is kind of. Thank you. This is kind of unusual, though. I've never been an interviewer, but thank you.